Κύριε Γραφάκο, ευχαριστούμε και εμείς πολύ για τη συνεργασία που και αναγνωρίζουμε και έχουμε ήδη ξεκινήσει. Να πω ότι έχουμε μια εξαιρετική συνεργασία με την κυρία Αρφανάκου και για το ΕΜΑΤ και για τον κανονισμό και ελπίζουμε να συνεχιστεί, γιατί έχουμε πραγματικά την ανάγκη να περάσουμε σε εσάς, να σας μεταφέρουμε τις θέσεις μας και να ανταλλάξουμε απόψεις στο επίπεδο του κανονισμού. Θα συνεχίσουμε τώρα και θα συνδεθούμε με τις Βρυξέλλες. Θα συνδεθούμε με το Γενικό Διευθυντή της FoodDrinkEurope, του Ευρωπαϊκού Συνδέσμου Βιομηχανιών Τροφίμων και Ποτών. Hello there, good morning.
So, good morning, Kalimera, everyone.
Thank you for being with us today.
With pleasure, with pleasure.
We discuss now the new regulation on packaging and packaging waste, and we're all here waiting for your presentation to give us the side of the European food industry and how this regulation will affect us.
Thank you
so the
very
floor
much,
is yours.
Thank you so much. And Kalimera, everyone. I'm sorry that I don't speak Greek, and I'm even more sorry for not being with you today in person, because I could enjoy great Greek food and drinks, and it is really one of the countries that I have deep in my heart when it comes to food and drink. Luckily, because of the single market, we are already able to enjoy also food and drink here from Greece into Brussels. So it's not that I'm not able to enjoy what you're having right there. My name is Dirk Jacobs, and I'm a Director General of FoodDrinkEurope, which is the organization for the European food and drink industry, and the Greek Food and Drink Federation, CEFT, is also an esteemed member of our organization. I'm going to share a few slides. I hope that it works. If the technicians can give me access to screen sharing, that would be great. Would that be possible? I think it's on the screen. So I'll lead you through where we stand as a food and drink industry on this new legislation coming from the European Commission on the packaging and packaging waste regulation. May I go to the next slide, please? I first would like to show you a few figures of the food and drink industry, because not everyone knows that we are one of the largest manufacturing sectors in the EU, so larger than the car sector or the pharma sector, for instance, in terms of turnover, but also in terms of employment. We have approximately 4.6 million people that are working in the food and drink manufacturing sector. And of course, if you extend that to the agricultural sector, it becomes even much more impressive. But also in terms of value added, we in Europe are known for producing and processing high added value products that are known all over the world. So we have a big footprint from an economic point of view, but also globally. We are the largest exporter of food in the world, and it goes everywhere. So our sector is made up out of 294,000 companies, and 99% of those are small and medium-sized enterprises. So these are the small dairy producers, the small olive oil producers. It can be snacks, beers, and so forth. So it's a very diverse sector. And why do I say this? A diverse sector requires also a diverse way of looking at the packaging and packaging waste discussion. And I'll come back to that in a while. Can I have the next slide, please? FoodDrinkEurope is representing 3 different membership types. It brings together national federations from most of the EU member states, plus Norway and the UK. 27 sector associations ranging from culinary products to beverages to snacks to dairy, meat, you name it. And also 25 of the large multinational companies. And so we represent that totality of the food and drink industry here in Brussels. If I may go on to the next slide. We are an industry that is on the path to packaging circularity and sustainable food systems. Our industry is really committed to the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy. And when it comes to packaging, a lot of investment have been made over the last years in new solutions, new materials, biodegradables, and so forth that look at using less packaging but also making sure that packaging can be better recycled. So there are a lot of individual projects that are ongoing in different countries, in different sectors, to improve the recyclability of packaging. But also when it comes to food, food has quite a specific place in the packaging discussion, because you need to ensure that you have food grade, food quality recyclable material, because of the whole safety issue and hygiene issue surrounded by food. So when it comes to materials that are coming in contact with food or drink, it is important that we increase the safe use of those materials, and of course making sure that they are recycled. There are several initiatives ongoing at EU level, but also at the national level, and I'm sure you have a lot of great examples in Greece on ways to improve the circularity of packaging. And one of the examples is the EU Plastics Pact, which aims to redirect 10 million of plastic into new products by 2025. But there are also other pledges that companies have made to reduce the use of virgin materials and so forth. So it's really a big sort of stride that we are making towards plastics packaging. Circularity, I should say. And here in FoodDrinkEurope, we've also been very active in pushing for the circular economy through our action plan for sustainable food systems. And I invite you to have a look at our website for a lot of these materials. So the point is that the industry is really on that journey of making packaging fully recyclable, fully reusable by 2030. And that's really the ambition that we have as a sector. If I may go to the next slide. The point is that we still need packaging as food and drink manufacturers for food safety reasons, making sure obviously that food remains safe, but also for the quality. If you don't have certain packaging during the transport phase, you could already have a deterioration of certain nutrients. But it is also about food waste, and this is where policy coherence becomes very important, because if we want to tackle the objective of reducing food waste in Europe, we also need to look at the role that packaging plays in that, and packaging in fact helps often to extend shelf life. So to preserve freshness, but also to preserve different portion sizes and provide information to consumers, we do need packaging. We do need to use packaging, however, in a different way and in a much more effective way. So if I may go to the next slide, please. Then it comes to the packaging and packaging waste proposal. And all the objectives that you see here is something that we subscribe to. So as an industry, we support the objectives of the packaging and packaging waste regulation. It's important that we prevent and reduce waste of packaging, that we make packaging recyclable, that we increase the use of recycled plastics, but also that we decrease the use of new virgin materials in packaging. So if we want to meet the climate targets by 2050 of the Green Deal, if we want to move towards a circular economy, we do believe that we do indeed need to go into that direction. Now, if I may have the next slide, please. So what do we think of this draft that the Commission came up with? First of all, as I said, we do support this ambition and this push for circularity. But what is critical, and this is what we have found through the investments that have been made by the industry over the past years, we can only go so far in making this transition, and we really need the support from the public sector to help us in engaging and accelerating the actions that are needed. So enabling conditions are absolutely critical. That means investment in infrastructure to help collect and sort the materials. So this is a key thing. In Europe, we are not collecting and sorting our waste of packaging enough. And at the national level, there's still a lot that needs to be done to make those systems compatible and make those and even create these systems. In addition, I think there's also a lack of appreciation that food requires priority access to food-grade recyclable material. So you can't use certain packaging just in the same way as you would do for the textile sector or for other sectors. For the food sector, you need special treatment of that packaging material. A second important point is that harmonization is absolutely important. 90% of the food and drink products that are produced here in Europe are going to be sold inside the single market of the EU. That means that there is a lot of cross-border exports and imports of food. And for that reason, we need to have the same rules across the EU. And I know that there is now currently a debate, and I think also the Greek minister is having a view on that certain countries could go further than what Brussels is dictating. And that we see really as a threat. We believe that the key instrument should be a regulation where the single market is the legal basis and where countries need to all have the same rules when it comes to packaging and packaging waste regulation. If not, then we will have a fragmentation of the single market. Companies will have to have additional costs in having to comply with different schemes across the EU, and that will create extra burdens. Companies also need more legal certainty. They need also better timelines when it comes to this proposal. If you look at this proposal, which is absolutely very complex, you see that a lot of steps still need to be taken before we can really be clear on what is expected from us. So the way how you make the design for recycling criteria, the way you make certain calculations of reuse and refill, this is all set in so-called delegated acts, which have to be developed still in a few years' time by the European Commission. And if you set targets that are for 2030, but you do not know until 2028 how to calculate or how to go about certain measures, then it's way too late for companies to prepare for that. So companies do need investment security and predictability so that they can really plan. And this planning takes time. We estimate that it takes around 5 years to really trial new packaging schemes to make sure that you sort of make your infrastructure inside the companies in place and so forth. So you really need to have sufficient time to go through that stepwise approach. Of course, our industry, as I said, has been investing a lot in recycling, in making sure that products, packaging can be recycled, and a lot of emphasis has gone into that. Now, this Commission proposal seems to focus a lot on reuse and refill, and that seems to sometimes be at odds with each other. And reuse is something that we do support, but only when it is something that is environmentally better and environmentally more friendly, but also technically and economically more feasible for the companies than recycling. I think we should not go into some sort of competition where there's only one way to do certain things. And in that regard, companies also need the flexibility to really make sure that they can decide on their own what is the best way to move towards circularity of their packaging. As I said, our industry is very diverse. We have beverage companies that have to deal with PET, with plastics packaging, mostly carton. But we have also the solid food manufacturers that have a totally different reality. We have large companies and small companies that have their own challenges. So this is really important to keep in mind that the companies need to have the flexibility to move in the best way that they feel. Can I show the slide? Can I see the slide again? Yes, of course. So if you see then what are our sort of the key priorities that we are having in this discussion, because now it's up to the European Parliament and the Council to maybe improve the regulation. We have 3 areas. First of all, recyclability, and then recycled content and reuse and refill. And where we see the main challenges on each of those is particularly on the predictability side. So the fact that the Commission does not set very clear timelines for the delegated acts that still have to follow. And that's why we believe that there needs to be some conditionality built into the proposal. So we cannot start investing now if we do not know what is expected from us in, let's say, 4 or 5 years' time. So it's very important that the Parliament and the Council very clearly set the timelines that allow us then in the end to make those to meet those targets. But we also need infrastructure and investment. There was a recent report from the European Investment Bank that showed that there's a 6.7 billion investment gap in plastic recyclates and in infrastructure in that regard. So in the EU. So that means that even if the industry is willing to go on that path, with that public investment and some of that also private investment that is needed, we will never get there. So it's nice to set a target, but if you are never able to go there, it is rather meaningless. So we have to have a discussion about the investment that is needed. And the investment is not only money, it's also infrastructure that is very important. The second item, and if I may have the slide on again, I'm sorry for that. The element of recycled content, where there is a lack of available food grade material. So even if our sector is very very interested in sort of making sure that we can recycle more. There is a lack of food quality material that is good enough to not create any safety issues. So in the proposal, we need much more appreciation for the specific needs for the food sector to have available food-grade recyclable material available, but also to make sure that there are specific provisions that acknowledge that food safety cannot be compromised, because that is absolutely critical. And then lastly, for the reuse and refill, it is very much important that there's no one-size-fits-all there. May I go to the next slide, please? So, in conclusion, we are very supportive of the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulations direction. So there's no doubt about that. But there are a couple of criteria that we believe are important to be fixed in. First of all, food and drink packaging is critical, so we cannot go to completely zero packaging. And therefore, also the food-specific considerations need to be included into this proposal. Secondly, companies, they need the flexibility. They are the best ones to see what is working and what is not, and how their business operations and how their product portfolio can be adapted so that they can reach 100% circularity by 2030. The timing, obviously, is and the sequencing and the planning that we need to make in the coming years is going to be absolutely critical. So unless we have more clarity on what is exactly required from companies, we need to sort of know how to invest and what to do. We need to make sure that timing is in place. So that may require a bit longer transition periods to start with. And the point that I made about additional infrastructural investment that is needed. We're now talking about here in Brussels about the Green Deal Industrial Plan. We need a Green Deal Industrial Plan for food. One that also makes the investment in circular infrastructure, in the sorting and the recycling infrastructure at national level. And I think there the EU should play a role in facilitating and enabling that. If you are interested in knowing more, we have also a very detailed position paper on the packaging and packaging waste regulation. It's the start of a lengthy process. I think this is important enough to do to have a quality discussion about this. So that's why I very much am pleased that you brought that as a topic to this conference. We are, of course, very willing as an industry to further collaborate with everyone, with the policymakers, but also with the packaging chain, to make sure that this is a proposal which is workable and good for the small companies, for the large companies, and obviously also for the policymakers. So thank you very much. Back to you, Lasso.
Thank you very much, Dirk, for your very interesting presentation on the challenges and the key issues of the package of this regulation for the European food industry. We will keep in mind, as a member of FoodDrinkEurope, that it is better to have a regulation as a legal framework instead of a directive, and we will discuss it with our Ministry of Environment during the enforcement of this regulation. Thank you very much, Dirk.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, you too.